Good morning, good afternoon, sorry. My name is Shazia Khan. The unit we'll be doing today, because you've done Learning Outcome 1, we'll be carrying on from Learning Outcome 2, which is looking at strategic human resource management. That's the unit, and it's unit 06. And the Learning Outcome today we'll be doing is to understand the formulation and implementation of human resource strategies. Now, when we talk about human resource management, what comes to mind? What is it? What's the first thing that comes to mind for you, Khurram?
Yeah, for me, the human resources management is a department which in the company or organization or any business, which supports the company as well as the employee for their improvement and development for both employee and company.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. It's very good to have because, it protects the individual, the company, and, the employees as well. And it's to do with humans, which are individuals, and to try to, get them to maybe to do with their contracts of employment, maybe to do with their, holidays, anything to do with implementation of human resource management. It is needed within any organization. There's always a need for that.
Yeah.
So, any organization that needs to run smoothly needs to have a human resource management department for it to run smoothly, and especially big organizations, because, if they don't have that department, then the process doesn't run smoothly. And the workforce, the skills, the motivation, these kind of techniques don't go further then. So we're going to look at Learning Outcome 2, and the first one is to look at 2.1. which is to analyze the strategic human resource process. So human resources involves looking at current workforce, skills and motivation techniques and comparing them to what is going to be needed in the future. So to do this, business has to take into account considerations, both internal factors, which is inside the organization, and external actors, which are outside the organization. So things like, you've got to go out and do certain training. Okay, so if you're working for an IT company, example, you need to go out and do IT training, don't you? If there's anything new coming into the organization, you need to be trained on that software, maybe, you need to be trained on any sort of new processes that are in place. And this human resource process is a way of bringing consistency and visibility throughout any sort of business. Okay, it makes it easier for employers and employees to interact with each other and with their HR teams. And, it's to make employees feel like they have, they have some sort of control, but they can go to somebody if there's any sort of grievances, any sort of discrimination, anything that happens. You've got the HR process there. It includes things like, planning, managing recruitment and selection. So, if they want to employ someone, they need to go through the HR department. If they want to, dismiss someone, they would have to go through the HR process as well. Also looks at things like, any sort of compensation awards for individuals or any sort of benefits or performance, things like that. So it's really important that, we as individuals, we as businesses have a HR department. Why do you think it's so important to have a HR department, Khurram?
Yeah, I think this is very important department because it's take care about the employees and consider the employees as assets, and it's formation develop the employees so that they play a vital role to promote the business of the organization.
Yeah. Does it improve employee morale to help them? Yes. So, the business grows, there's more growth in that business, and it has an impact on the business because, it develops the business, it manages the business, and, it's there for paying, recruiting, employing individuals. So, human resource at the end of it is a division of a business that's responsible for all sorts of different things like, like we said, benefits, terminations, compensation, job applications. So it's quite a big department that kind of runs a business.
Yeah.
So the process for human resource planning And there's a process that needs to be taken into account. You have your business strategy plans, then you have your resource strategy, which works from a scenario planning, demand and supply, forecasting, and labor turnover. So they look at this process. They also look at the work environment, and also things like human resource plans, operational effectiveness analysis, and it looks at resources, resources that it needs to provide, retention, flexibility, productivity, and this is the work environment. So what kind of resources does it need to look at for individuals? What kind of resources do you think they need to look at?
Yeah, actually, if we talk about these resources,
Yeah.
so we need talent to develop the
Yes.
talent, learning and development for the employees.
Yeah.
So especially because if the employee have a full awareness about this system, so they can perform well. So we need to use this resource to give the talent, to promote the talent of the employees, so that they perform well and play a vital role in their performance.
Yeah, because their performance increases productivity, doesn't it? If someone performs well, the turnover's good, the productivity is good, the getting all the resources together is a good, so performance is really good for staff.
Yeah.
So when we look at internal planning factors, and there are factors that relate to things like, the different factors. You have internal factors and you have external factors. And internal factors are those that control, they come from within the organization, such as influenced by your thoughts and things like that. It could be decision making, whilst it's negative or positive. So they're factors that relate to what is already happening within the business. This could include things like how the organization is changing to cope with new methods of working or new demands made or on it, such as the introduction of new technology, like I said, or the introduction of new skills. And it could be the introduction for the future existing staff, the gap between skills already present and those that are needed. So they measure the skills. So the sustainability and cultural competence in that diagram looks at assessment, capacity, planning, implementation, and evaluation. So these are really important in an organization. Some more internal factors are things like organizational demands. So the workforce needs to be able to adapt to changes. Demand for products and services will affect the number of people needed in certain roles. So, if products are high, there's a more need for more staff members. If products are low, then there's not a need for that much staff members. Businesses can look into new markets. This could mean abroad and staff needing new skills such as languages. More staff may be needed in distribution if the business grows. It's really important that you look at your organizational needs. If you are planning to do a business in another country, you need to take into account that you may need different staff with different language barriers. You may need different staff, different timings and things like that. So all this needs to be taken into consideration when looking at any sort of organizational issues around it, because you as an organization need to be able to develop properly. What would, if I asked you about an example, give me an example of a workforce that may may want to do things smoothly, or may want to, what about like an organization that might want to set up in Qatar? Again, that might be an example. What would they need to set up
what would they need to start a new organization?
Yeah, or what kind of things would they need? Like organizational needs. Would they need new members of staff?
Yeah, actually, it depends upon the designing of the organizations. So which type of organization we are going to start. So we need to think about this, and if we are going to start a construction industry. So
Yeah.
obviously we need the professional who deals with the constructions, like laborers and engineers, the managers, and so we need to think accordingly as per the demand and the market. So we need to hire that talent, and we need the resources to hire, and we need to see all the background history,
Yeah.
and we need to settle these things if we talk about HRM. So
Yeah.
basically HRM only deals with the talent, people.
Yeah.
So humans. So
Yeah.
not like equipments and other machinery.
Yeah.
This is another operation parts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need to focus the humans, and humans like the sufficient skills they have or
Yeah.
not. So we
Yeah.
need to comparable as per market. So they have a better understanding of the job roles, and if required, we need to give them training, and we need to furnish them as per the market.
Yeah. So new skills,
Yeah,
language skills,
yeah,
and also things like technological change can also affect internal working arrangements. So machinery leads to redundancies. Sometimes, if you get new machines in and you get robots in, you don't need workers, do you?
yeah,
Yeah, so may need training, internet shopping, self-scanning checkouts, outsourcing production to cheaper countries. So these kind of things need to be taken into account.
yeah,
These are internal factors, okay? Some more internal factors are skills requirements, like we talked about, assessing
yeah,
someone's skills,
yeah,
it's part of a human resource planning.
yeah, yeah,
It enables the business to build up a profile of your experience and your qualifications. And also it's important because whether the business is capital intensive or labor intensive, it's really important that you have the skills requirement within an organization, because the organization is able and must measure the skills levels of its workforce. Things as appraisals, awards, certificates, any sort of training, these all need to be measured across, because these need to be identified.
yeah,
Workforce profiles. So this means that a manager can view and monitor the types of employee working for the business. They usually include details such as age, gender, ethnicity, and availability. Knowing ages can help you plan for the future, and also ensures that you fulfill any legislation requirements. And large gaps in ages can cause problems. So this, allows you to combat this. Profiling the qualifications and training of your workforce allows a business to make use of any special skills that staff members may need. There may be a professional in an area that they may need extra skill, so you should be able to train that person. For example, it might be using a very, large machinery in the warehouse that you do not know about, that you don't have any staff that know anything about it. So you need to train that staff, because it could cause problems, couldn't it, later on? There may be issues where the staff member have hurt itself, and you need to be careful that if you have this skill and this training, and you are meeting the requirements of the law legislation, then you are able to identify that these things happen. Otherwise, it's very difficult for an organization to just run a company like this without looking at internal factors.
yeah, surely. And we need to follow the legislation, local
Yes,
legislation
yes.
in
Yeah,
the country.
in the country is very important, the
Yeah,
jurisdiction. And then you've got external planning. So the internal planning we've looked at, there are also external factors which are from outside its direct control. So the supply of labor is one. So what are the trends of the area that the business is in?
yeah,
Is a particular type of trade in that area? So you need to, before establishing a business, you need to find out whether there's trade in that area, if there's any sort of supply of labor. Nationally, the supply of labor is dependent on trends in
yeah,
unemployment and the types of skills that are needed by employers. What is the effect of Britain's membership of the EU as well? Obviously we're out of it, but you could look at the impact of that. Also, the labor costs, the cost of labor is really important as a percentage will depend on whether the business is capital or labour intensive, as well as the extent to which the skills needed by the organisation are available and accessible in UK. So labour costs are also governed by national minimum wage as well. Then you've got another external factor, which is the workforce skills. Using published national statistics, organizations can see the types of skills that are available in their local area or region. Businesses need to consider their future needs and also those of competitors in order to make sure they attract the right people. So this may mean extra incentives being offered to the businesses. Government policy, and it's really important that any organization dealing with any sort of, businesses internally or externally, outside nationally or internationally, must, look at government policy, and changes to education policies can lead to gaps in skills or gaps in skills being addressed. You must also take into an account in the external market competition. So as a business, plan its workforce needs to, for the future, look at other businesses within the same industry. There may not be enough skilled employees for each business, so you may need to offer more money to attract the right staff. However, you need to manage your funds well to make a profit. Changing the nature of the work, so a job for life used to be a standard idea in workplace, but now employees need a wider range of skills and will be willing to change employer and job role in order to stay and work. So overnight working, flexible working hours and working from home are now commonplace, the flexibility and also, hybrid or remote learning, things like that. Employees' expectations. So, you need to take into account employees have different expectations. There could be contracts of employment that are full-time, part-time, casual, temporary. Everyone is different, and employees may have a business at home to take care of, meaning that they cannot work full-time. So all this has to be taken into account. The impact of automation, so the addresses, the changes, technology over time, how it affects organizations such as the internet and email. So is there need for phone operators, customers entering their own details online? And the big one is the demand for products and sales. If there's a demand for something, then you're going to set up a business, aren't you? Otherwise, is there a point to set up a business? So a business may have to alter change its HR requirements or staff levels based on natural changes in demand for goods or services. Hotels being affected by natural disaster, for example, a competitor bringing out new technology, making it obsolete, excessive capacity where organization has too many goods or services. So, you need to identify these external factors to be able to, identify if there's a demand for a product in that area. So 2.2, assess the approaches of strategic human resource management. The first one we're going to look at is the HRM models of Tyson and Fell. And these are models that are used in when we look at any sort of organization that deals with these kind of elements. So there must be academics in place to look at what their views are. So when we look at the first one, it's Tyson and Fell, and they are using an analogy from the building profession, and they position personnel roles on continuum low discretion and short planning for high discretion and long-term planning. So that was what they thought of their role as Tyson and Fell. HR activities are largely routine, employment and day-to-day administration. Policies are short-term and ad hoc. They also looked at the HR department will use fairly sophisticated systems. The HR manager is likely to be professional or very experienced in industrial relations, but will not be on board and will act mainly in interpretive, not creative or editive. The architect, the HR policies exist as part of the strategy. So human resource planning development are important concepts. The head of the HR is probably on board with power derived from professionalism. And that was what Tyson and Fell thought. Then you had Story's ideology, a HRM model, and he looked at strategic and tactical. And he looked at change makers, which is close to the HRM model. He looked at advisors who act as internet consultants, leaving much of the HRR practice to line managers. And then he looked at regulators on there, who are managers of discontent, concerned with formulating and monitoring employment rules. And then finally, it was handmaidens, and they were merely provide a service to meet the different needs of line managers. So there's different roles and different models in place for HRM to help implement different tactics. You've got the HRM model of Riley, which looked at short and long term. It also looked at the administrative controller and the strategist and innovator, and also the advisor and consultant. And it looked at the contribution of each one in Riley's. Then we've got the HRM models of Caldwell. And Caldwell concentrated on the role of HRM managers as change agents and identified 4 types of things in his model. He identified firstly that change champions who envisage, lead, or implement strategic change. And then secondly, he identified change adapters who act as reactive pragmatists who adapt the vision to the realities of the organization and view organizational change as a slow process. Then number 3, change consultants who implement a discrete change project or the key changes of a HRM change. And then number 4 is change synergists who strategically coordinate, integrate, and deliver large-scale and multiple change projects across the whole organization. So when we look at these models, why do you think it's so important that we have HRM models by different people in place? Do you think all these models are different?
Yeah.
Do you think there's a need to have these different models?
Yeah, there should be, because this.
Do you think all the organizations use the same model, or do they use different models?
No, sometimes they are using the different model as per their own objectives and goals.
Yes.
Yeah, because they are not following these models. Yes.
So they don't have to follow one model. They'll follow their own objective goal, and they'll follow different models.
Yes.
And some models work for some businesses and some models don't work for some businesses. So it's very important that you identify which HRM model works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so competencies framework for HRA specialists. So for business and cultural awareness, it understands that the business environment, the competitive pressures it faces, and its critical success factors. Number 2, it looks at the key activities and processes of how these affect business strategies. Then number 3, the culture of the business. And number 4, how HR policies and practices can impact on the business performance, and it puts the understanding to good use. The strategic capability, you look at number 1, which seeks to involvement in business strategy formulation and contribution to the development of the strategy. It understands how HR can support the achievement of a business strategy. How do you think HR would support the achievement of any sort of business?
Yeah, because HR is responsible to achieve the business of a organization through its strategic human resources procedures, which they make a strategic planning about the business, about like the implies, and then they provide the solutions, how they can promote themselves, and through these strategic approach, obviously they are approaching to maintain and improve the business.
Yeah. So, it does play a big role, doesn't it? It plays quite a big role. HR department. Yeah. So then number 3, it contributes to the development of a business of a clear vision and sets out integrated values. And number 4, it develops and implements coherent HR strategies that are integrated within the business strategy and one another. Organizational effectiveness, so it contributes to the planning and implementation of cultural change and organizational development programs. Number 2, it helps to develop resource capability by ensuring that business has skilled, committed, and well-motivated workforce it needs. So skills are really important in any business, in any organizations. You need to keep on top of your skills of the employees, and you need to help develop, help develop the process in regards to people, the best, how you bestly use these. Number 4, it contributes to development of knowledge management processes. So it's really, really important in organizational effectiveness that you take on board your skills of your workforce and how motivated your workforce are. Because they're the ones that are doing everything, aren't they? The main people that are doing everything is human beings.
Yeah, humans.
Yes.
Yes.
Internal consultancy. So number 1, it carries out the analysis and diagnosis of people issues and proposes practical solutions. Number 2, it adopts interventionist style to meet client needs, acts as a catalyst, facilitator, and expert as required. Number 3, it uses processes, consultancy approaches to resolve people problems. And number 4, coaches clients to deal with its own problems, transfers skills. And then service delivery. Number 1, it anticipates requirements and sets up appropriate services to meet them. Number 2, provides efficient and cost-effective services in each HR area. Number 3, responds promptly and efficiently to requests for HR services, helps and advise. And number 4, it promotes the empowerment of line managers to make HR decisions, but provides guidance as required. Continuous professional development. So number 1, it continually develops your professional knowledge and skills. So it's really important. It benchmarks good HR practice, keeps in touch with new HR concepts, practices, and techniques, and it demonstrates understanding of relevant HR practices. 2.3, analyze the development and implementation of human resource strategies. So the stages involved in planning human resource requirements are outlined as the initial stage is determination of organizational purposes and objectives for which planning is needed. So example, if an organization has increased employee turnover, then objective will be to find reasons behind the concern and plan a solution. The second step is environment scanning. So this is organization will discuss the concern with the employees and supervisors to identify reasons. Also, it will assess the skill, evaluation, and delegation of tasks to get idea of workload, stress, and that was in the book of Armstrong and Taylor, 2014. The third step is determining gaps. So example here, current manpower strength and future production need is analysed to estimate the supply of manpower, which can be met by hiring skilled employees. The fourth step is identifying needs of job position, skills, and knowledge requirements. After this, a structure is designed for job description, person specification, training, compensation, and benefits. The fifth step is execution of human resource planning. So example, in this case, recruitment is made for new skilled employees. The final step is evaluation and monitoring of planning. Example, in this case, is new employees' performance will be measured against set standards and expected outcomes to determine success of planning. Recruitment can be defined as searching for and obtaining a potential pool of candidates with the desired knowledge, skills, and experience to allow an organization to select the appropriate people to fill in job vacancies and positions. Why do you think that's a big role within the HR department? Do you think that's quite a big role?
Yeah, it's a big role because the recruitment is like a, if I'm gonna give example, is like a vertebral column because it's play a very important role to recruit the real talent and the appropriate talent. Because if they are not going to recruit the appropriate talent, obviously that will be a disadvantages for the organization. So that's why.
Why would it be disadvantage?
Because suppose I want to give you one example. We need a good electrical technician, and we hire a person who don't aware about the functions of the electricians. And in case we give any job responsibility to this guy,
Yes.
and he make a problem in the system, like we have a machine, so
Yes.
he do some wrong things with the machine because he's not aware about its procedure, and
Yeah.
the machine can be a damage and the employee can be a damage, and both way this is the big loss of the organization.
Yeah. So it's really important that, you know, they are skilled. They've got that organizational skills because, you know, when you select someone for a job, you need to meet the, you know, description and the specification for that job. Like you said, it may damage the machinery, but it may damage the person as well. They may get hurt because they don't know what they're doing. So, you know, you need to be very selective. And because of that, you know, there have been cases against organizations where they've done things wrong. You know, they've not done things properly, and the law has been there to protect the other people. So you've got to be really careful as an organization. So there's a handout that you need to read onto Moodle, okay? If you go on Moodle, there's a handout for you, okay? Now, some of the references we've used for today are things like Armstrong's Handbook of Human Resource Management. We've also used the Human Resource Strategy Formulation Implementation by Bainberger. Another one by Bennett was Human Resource Management. By Bethichman, Labour Market. So these are some of the good resources you can use in regards to doing any sort of research for your assignment. Boone, HR Practices and Employees Outcomes. Then we've also used books resources such as Gomez, which looked at compensation and organizational performance. We looked at Gupta N, which is employee compensation, HRM, management review, relationship between job satisfaction, job performance, attitude towards work, and organizational commitment, and the impact of high performance by Kehoe, Mowbray, an integrative review of employee voice, and identifying a common conceptualization and research agenda. We've also looked at effective helping, interviewing and counseling by Okun. So these are some of the resources that will help you towards doing your assignment or any sort of issues around learning outcome 1. So learning outcome 2, sorry, we've looked at learning outcome 2, we've looked at internal and external factors. We've also looked at, you know, things like the models that are used in the HRM process and why they're so important, like Caldwell, Riley, and the need for these models within the HRM process. We've the internal factors, and we've addressed internal and external factors in regards to a business setting up. And now we've finished learning outcome 2. Have you got any questions, Khurram, or anything around learning outcome 2?
No, it's okay. I got.
No? The next session is excellent. The next session is next week. Okay, I think is it on Friday?
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
Okay, so if you've not got any questions, we've finished the session off now, and I will see you in the next session, which is next week. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay, no problem. Can we do Friday and Saturday 2 section in next week?
We've got a session on just 1 minute. We've got a session on Friday.
Unit. Yeah.
Learning
This one
outcome
LO
3.
3 and 4 together in Friday and Saturday.
We've got LO3 on Friday, then we've got LO4 on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then we've got the assignment discussion the week after. Is that okay, or did you want that early?
It's okay.
Okay then. Thank you for that, okay? Thank
Okay,
you. See you later.
thank you very much.
Bye.